Hello everyone, Marcus Stahl here, and today we're going to be doing an impressions video of Sword Art Online 2, Episode 10, Pursuer of Death. Let's get this started. For my overall impressions of this episode, I'd have to say that it was pretty good, on all honesty. I mean, I'd say I liked it just as much as I liked last week's episode and the weeks before, so I can really say that the season's really starting to pick up its pace and make things a bit more interesting, at the very least on an engagement level. But at the same time, I have to say that I liked this episode for different reasons than I liked the previous two. With the last two, it was more about the action and the awesome sights that you would occasionally see, and the fact that the story was considerably progressing at a much greater pace. But for this week's episode, I actually kind of preferred that they slowed things down a little bit and went for a more emotional baggage episode, whereby we get to see everyone just let loose their emotions and get to figure out a bit more about, well, maybe not figure out so much as just clear up some things. With this episode, they decided to take a more emotional route, whereby we get to examine each character's motivations and feelings on everything, and get a better feeling for how they feel in the situation. In terms of what actually happened, wait a little bit later since we're going to get more into the spoiler territory, but just know that if you're coming to this episode more for the action, there's still some action there, and I'm not going to say that there's no action, but it's just that it kind of takes a second seat to the latter half of the episode, which focuses more or less entirely just on the characters' feelings and sentiments, and getting all the emotional baggage out of the air. So, if you like the episode, give it a watch-see on whatever anime website you use, although I suggest looking up Crunchyroll, Hulu, or any other official site, since it helps support the anime industry. Well then, everyone, on to the next half of this episode, the spoilers. We kick off this episode at the same point we ended it off last week, whereby Shinon has been stunned, both physically and mentally, by Death Gun. She has been shot with a paralyzer round and thus can't move, and she has also been completely and utterly frightened into submission at the sight of the Black Star 45, the gun that she herself had used 5 years previously, IRL, in order to help defend her mother's life, but as a result, kill a man. She is completely mortified and is left in a completely worthless state, at which point we hear a bang. However, this bang, which we'd heard since last week, was not of Death Gun's gun, but rather Kirito's gun, as he pulls a big damn hero's moment and comes out of nowhere, picks up Shinon after throwing a smoke grenade to divert Death Gun, and runs off with her in order to try to avoid their assailant. Yep, not really surprised here, but continuing onwards, we're now introduced into a nice little chase sequence, whereby Kirito mounts a buggy, and they try to avoid Death Gun by driving away. However, he tries to get Shinon to shoot a horse, or a mechanical horse at least, that was back there, in order to prevent, apparently, Death Gun from using it, since he suspects that they'll end up using it. Although I'm not too sure why one would choose a horse over a buggy, but anyhow, basically, he tells Shinon to try to shoot it, but she is still in a completely weakened state after having seen the Black Star 45, and isn't really doing much in order to be able to really shoot. She's basically the same Shinon we see IRL, but in the game now. So they decide to run away because Shinon can't really shoot it off, and as a result, Death Gun starts to pick up chase using the mechanical horse behind them, although I'm still amazed a horse can outrun a motorcycle. But, logic aside, basically, Kirito is consistently just trying to get Shinon to try to shoot the guy, but she herself just can't pull the trigger on her Hekate. No matter what she does, she is still just completely and utterly stunned by the situation from previously. At which point Kirito gives her a light pep talk, holding the gun along with her, which finally manages to get her to shoot off a shot, which completely misses. But, thankfully, it shoots off a car's engine in the game, and as we all know from playing video games, when you shoot a car, it blows up. Something that technically shouldn't happen in IRL unless you're using tank shells, but anyhow, the explosion ends up working, and Kirito and Shinon are successfully able to ride off into the sunset and avoid their scenario. After the sequence, the brake pedal is hit hard on the episode's pacing, and all of a sudden, we're just seeing Kirito and Shinon. After finding the cave, Kirito and Shinon decide to discuss their next plan of action. In Kirito's preference, he would prefer if Shinon logged out, but at the same time she has no desire to do so, and finally comes out to him exactly on why it is that she is trying to stay inside of the game. And likewise, it finally gets Kirito to finally just admit, I am an SAO survivor, and tell her the circumstances of what are going on here, although they haven't completely explained his reasons for being here, being that he's technically, I guess one could say secret agent or government agent. But, anyhow, we finally get some more clarity on both parts, and it's really interesting to see them just pour their emotions out. In particular, though, we get to see Shino just basically let everything out. I mean, she is crying like a baby in this episode. And quite frankly, while it's a little disappointing to see how far she has fallen from the Ice Sniper moniker that we know her from, at the same time, I am a sucker for a girl that's crying. So yeah, I can't really detract too much from this episode on that end. So the episode just decides to end off with Kirito reaffirming that he's going to go off to try to take out Death Gun, and that Shinon is going to come with him in order to help resolve the situation. Well, everyone, as you can probably imagine, I liked this episode, but at the same time I liked it for different reasons than the last one. I mean, like I said earlier, this episode was much more sentimental in nature, and while it isn't as action-heavy or really as awesome as some of the other things we've seen in the series, at the same time, I really enjoyed it. It's a good change of pace from what we were seeing before, and I'm waiting with great anticipation for next week's episode. Well, everyone, that just about does it for this week's video. Do subscribe, since I'm going to be doing a video every single week for Sword Art Online until it runs out, and I'm also planning on doing a review and following up on Log Horizon when it does come up next month. Well, everyone, that's just about it. This is Marcus Doll, logging out.